Good morning, good morning, good morning, good people. Good morning, New York.
Yes, good morning, good morning.
Los Angeles.
Yes, everybody.
Atlanta, Georgia.
Everywhere.
That's right. And Africa.
Africa.
Europe, Asia. We're worldwide, right, Miss Good News?
We're worldwide. We are worldwide. Y'all are listening, tuning in right now to WLJZ 107.1 FM. And I'm going to let this man right here take the floor, and I'm going to follow his lead.
Well, I'm in the building with Miss Good News this morning and the good team here at the Livingstone College.
Yes. Whoop, whoop.
The home of the Blue Bears.
Yes.
One of America's premier HBCUs.
Mm-hmm.
And all colleges for that matter.
Right.
This college has so much storied history.
That's right.
It has produced history makers that have gone across the globe and literally changed the world. Dr. Price's school, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
right.
A big shout out to Dr. Jenkins.
That's right.
The president of this great institution, and to Dr. Datavia Parrish.
Yeah, shout out to her. She do big things.
She
I tell
do.
you. The
Does
big
she?
read.
Yes.
It's fitting.
It's fitting, right? Big things, big read.
Yes. She's
Dr.
doing
Parrish is that lady.
She is.
She is that scholar, that historian, that community person.
Yeah, she is.
She is all that and then some. I feel a freestyle coming on.
Uh-oh. Y'all heard him. He couldn't
something's
stop.
happening already.
It was happening. He was just going with it.
I'm going to just go with it.
You let them know who you are again.
Yeah, my name is William McKee, and I'm a North Carolinian.
Yes.
Born and raised right here and I gotta shout out Salisbury, North Carolina.
Whoop, whoop, you know.
Come on now, because that's where we're broadcasting from.
Yes.
From the beautiful campus of Livingstone College, Salisbury, North Carolina. Nestled right in the center of the state, the Piedmont area, you could say, about 30 miles north of Charlotte.
Right.
And about 45 miles south of Greensboro.
Right in the middle.
Right. So if you're in Los Angeles, if you're a parent in Los Angeles, before we even get to the show, I feel led to say this. If you're a parent in Los Angeles, California, or Phoenix, Arizona, or Denver, Colorado, or the people that just got through listening to Go-Go last night in Washington, D.C.
That's right.
Or my peeps up in Brooklyn, and you want a great school to send your child to, where they're going to get a first-class, world-class education.
Come on.
Where they're going to be nurtured into reaching their highest potential of who they are, so they'll go off and be a star and go far.
That's right.
And be above par. Send your child, your young woman, your young man to the Livingstone College.
That's it.
A transformative experience. They'll never be the same.
Man.
And hey,
that sounded good because it's real. That's the only reason why it can sound that good, because it is true. Yes, it's true.
It's true. It's good news, and that is good news. And let me say this real quick. My connection to Livingstone College is a few areas. We got 2 hours here. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to sit down in this thing and take my time, and then I'm going to introduce who we're going to have on today. Okay. And what our topic is. Well, I'm going to throw that out. We're talking Jack Johnson this morning.
Jack Johnson. Y'all know.
Yes, the first African-American heavyweight world champion of the entire world, Jack Johnson.
Right.
And we're talking about the rise and fall of Jack Johnson, and we're going to explore the psychosocial aspects of his life and its implications all the way right here to today. We're going to walk it down in Atlanta. They used to say walk it out. We're going to walk it up to right now, up to the modern times.
Right.
So, but just let me give you a quick piece so the LC Blue Bears will know my connection to this great institution. I used to be with a foundation called the Phelps Stokes Fund. It was around for over 100 years. It founded the United Negro College Fund. And many other, the Harlem Boys Choir, tribal colleges all across the country, co-founded about 13 historically black colleges and universities.
Wow.
Yes. And so during that time, we had a Ralph Bunche Society here, named after the first African American to win the Nobel Peace Prize, Dr. Ralph Johnson Bunch. And during that time, Dr. Parrish was the liaison for that great group here that went on to work on Capitol Hill, travel the world. And I was invited to do about 3 Vespa services, which for those of you that don't know out there, at Livingstone College, they used to. I hope they still do. I know there's something like it on like Wednesday. The whole campus will come to the auditorium and they bring these dynamic speakers in that talk everything from theology to career, to reaching your goals, inspirational speakers. And they thought enough of me, thank the Lord, to bring me in to do that about 3 times.
Wow.
And it was awesome because, as the great scholar used to say, to teach is to learn twice. So I learned something every time I was here, Miss Good News, and I just wanted to let the world know that was my professional connection to the college, and I've been in love with LC ever since. And matter of fact, my brother coached here for a little while back in the day with Coach Stan Luter and all those good people. So
You're connected.
I'm connected. What's your connection to the college?
Let me tell you a little good story.
Come on.
So I have been here for maybe about 7 months now, and it has been phenomenal. Leaps and bounds, I must say. We have been growing as a station, just me individually, Miss Good News. So government name is Jania Woods, okay, but y'all stick to Miss Good News. So they brought me in here as a personality, and it's just been, again, I've been meeting so many different people, from Dr. Parrish to Dr. Jenkins, the president, Dr. Alexander. It's the list goes on, and I don't want to start naming because you didn't. So listen, it's a lot of great people here, good quality people too.
Right.
And so, like you said, you learn it twice. My saying, Miss Good News saying, is if you want to keep going, you got to keep growing. Okay, so
that's right.
Just always stay in a place where you can learn, and that's me. That's what I'm doing. I'm just look where I'm at now, sitting here with you,
doing it big,
it
big. And so we're gonna keep learning and keep growing and keep going. And you're right. It's just like at the Grammys, when you stand up and start naming people.
Right.
That's a dangerous place because you're going to forget somebody that was instrumental in how you got to where you are.
That's right.
But I am going to throw out a few. I threw out Stan Luter, former head basketball coach here, Mr. Jim Polk, old school Blue Bear, Omega Psi-Phi brother. And then you got Mr. Dana Merck, who's the dean of students down at Carteret Community College, and I gotta shout out Rowan Cabarrus Community College, the great folks over there.
That's right.
Miss Bridget, Jay, and Miss Jessica, all those good people that teach those adults over there. And Ben Coates, who played in the NFL. I'd be here all day if I did that.
See, now I have to do a little bit.
Now you got to shout out. Come on.
So let's just shout out to Symphony. Symphony is here. He's the director over the multimedia department here at Livingstone College.
Yes.
Shout out to Prez, who's back here on these cameras right now. And he probably like, girl, okay, shout out to him. He's also a radio personality here. Miss Harrington. So many people. Miss Miller, Dr. Alexander again.
Right.
So it's just a lot of people, but I had to make sure. WLJZ 107.1 FM. That's the squad over here. The bottom line is Prez, Symphony, and myself, Miss Good News.
I know that's right. Who you with? I'm with LC today.
It.
So I guess I'll pivot to the show and get back to some of my shenanigans a little later. But that'll be sprinkled out intermittently through the whole show.
That's right.
Just as a warning, because that's what I do. But today's topic, everybody, I almost said self-destruction. Y'all don't know nothing about that. That's old school hip-hop when we spoke to what we needed to be doing. Not that we don't do that now. Young artists, don't call in and get at me because I like what y'all are doing too.
Right.
But today's topic is the rise and fall of the first African-American heavyweight boxing champion, none other than Jack Johnson.
Jack Johnson.
And his life was controversial, groundbreaking, just awesome, tragic in a lot of ways. And we're gonna dive deep into that. We're gonna dive in like Trey Songz used to say. We're gonna go into that real strong. And who we have in the building to do that? We've brought in a heavyweight guest, and we've got a few other heavyweight guests that'll be calling in later. I'm gonna announce them all real quick. Who we will have riding with us strong in this first hour is none other than Dr. W.E.B, PhD, who is the chair of liberal studies at Winston-Salem State University, an awesome institution about 30 miles to the northwest of here. And he is a scholar in the area of literature and all things in the literature area. And he's even done some research on Jack Johnson. So we've got Dr. Boone in the building that I'll be swinging it to real soon. And then in addition to Dr. Boone, and Dr. Boone worked with Dr. Cornell West at Princeton, and Dr. Lamont Hill up at Princeton as well. So he's worked with some great luminaries, and he's one himself. Humble, but he's that dude. We've also got it that's going to be calling in a little later. We've got record exec mogul. We got a big wig calling in a minute. None other than Charles Whitfield, who is in the 2020 class of the North Carolina Music Hall of Fame. He was a co-founder of Hidden Beach Recordings, where they produced the likes of Jill Scott. Yes. And Charles helped build those Grammys with Jill Scott and Darius Rucker and Brenda Russell and all those great people. And Charles will be jumping in with us for a few minutes a little later on. Charles' brother is the president and minority owner of the Charlotte Hornets. Of the NBA, and they're doing great things this year and have always been strong in our community.
Right.
So Charles will be calling in. We'll also have none other than Malcolm Teasdale, who's a partner in work with Charles Whitfield. Malcolm is a noted educator and author out of Detroit, Michigan, originally from the South Bronx, the South Bronx, as KRS would say. And he co-wrote the second edition of Howard White's book, Believe to Achieve. Wow. Howard White is the brain trust of Brand Jordan. He actually came up with the idea of having the Brand Jordan shoe. Malcolm Teasdale co-wrote the second edition of his book. He'll be calling in. And in addition to that, on the second hour, we have the crew from Names Are Not Important, the Mac and Free Show podcast. They go in probably the deepest as any crew in the country on sports, society, and culture. Ben Free and Del Fischio McDonald. So that's who we've got lined up. That's and anything you want else to say, Miss Good News, before we bring Dr. Boone in? You got any other shout outs?
They had me over here. I'm like, that's a good lineup. That's mean we're gonna get some different perspectives, a lot of different perspectives, and I'm just honored to be in the number.
Well, Miss Good News has a awesome task. She got a lot on her back today because she's representing for all the sisters today.
Yes, y'all help me out. I can hear y'all silently, You
channeling them here
Yeah,
now?
I'm channeling them in. So we're going to be all right. We'll be all right, sisters.
Oh, yeah, we're going to be fine. And big shout out to all the sisters. So, Dr. Boone, how you doing this morning, brother?
I'm fantastic, Brother McKee.
Yeah, well, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us today. And I really appreciate that. So, let's jump in from the beginning. I'd like the listeners to kind of go back in time. We used to have a sample in hip hop music that we used to say, we getting ready to go back in the time.
Right.
So I'm going to ask everybody to do that right now. Harken your mind, your spirit, and your soul back to the late 1800s and the early 1900s in America. Because if we think about this issue from our perspective right now, we're going to miss it, I fear. So, let's go back in the time to the days of Jack Johnson. Back in the days of Jack Johnson. So, Dr. Boone, the first thing I want to throw out to you, sir, is talk about the social context of the turn of the century at that time. What was it like for an African-American male in the 1890s? Where did your mind go with that?
Right. I mean, it's a very, very good question. So, the 1890s, late 1800s, early 1900s was a very, very interesting time for race relations in the U.S. I mean, I would argue that the United States was at a somewhat crossroads. So, to just give some historical context, the Civil War ends in 1865, Reconstruction, 1863, 1877. But I think what's important for our conversation is a period between 1877 and 1900, which is considered the nadir or a low point for African Americans. And so essentially what the nadir was all about was sort of white resistance, a white backlash against black mobility during the Reconstruction years. And so by the time we get to, say, 1879, we start to see a rise in lynchings. And so Jack Johnson emerges on the eve of these events. And actually, we see a rise in racial violence in the United States. In Tulsa, the famous Black Wall Street, which is in the early 1900s, the Atlanta riots, the Red Summer of 1919. And so we see Jack Johnson emerge within this sort of cultural, historical milieu. And then in terms of thinkers, black thinkers, of course, we have Booker T. Washington's Up from Slavery in 1901. And then we have the Souls of Black Folk, Du Bois, 1903. And then we have Garvey, comes to the U.S. in 1916. And so all of these cross currents, I think, are very important to understand Jack Johnson. So it wasn't so much that black folk were merely oppressed people. It was also this push towards equality, not only culturally, but then economically. We have Madam C.J. Walker also emerges in the early 1900s, the Harlem Renaissance. So it's a very, very interesting time. And so when we think back on the early 1900s, late 1800s, I don't think we should be revisionist and look at black culture, African Americans, as merely oppressed peoples. I think that there were very complex times, very, very interesting cross currents. And I think to some extent, Jack Johnson represents the crystallization of these cross currents.
So, Doc, you talked about something that I want to hit on, because what you're describing to me is essentially apartheid, or something even stronger than that, maybe. So, I want to go back to something that you said about black African American mobility. So, are you suggesting that we were African Americans were not permitted to be mobile, like literally, that travel and relocation to another state, or how we moved our families, all that? Are you suggesting that all that was controlled and in some cases prohibited?
Well, I was speaking more in terms of particularly in the South, the policing of black movement. So it wasn't so much that black folk were permitted to travel, because you had figures like Jack Johnson who traveled internationally, and what I'm saying is that we tend to look at the early 1900s or the late 1800s as a time of pure, just mere oppression of black folk. But what I'm saying is, we can juxtapose that oppression with a strong push for black folk to enter the capitalistic marketplace. And so there were these competing, often conflicting movements, if you will, that were occurring simultaneously. So on one hand, you had white supremacy trying to reestablish itself in the South, but then on the other hand, you have black people who were pushing back on this. And so I often argue that there were moments of unbridled optimism throughout history, African American history. So at the end of the Civil War, there was a moment of this unbridled optimism where black people were very optimistic. But if we look at history closer, we find a white backlash. So there's cycles of white supremacy that take place in America. These sort of pushback on black humanity, black personhood. So yeah, I mean, there were attempts to be made, but I think the story around Jack Johnson and blackness at the end of the 19th century is a story of resistance. So that's what I was trying to say, that it's not just a story of white supremacist oppression on black folk. This is really about resistance. So I think that's a useful lens to not only look at black culture, but then also Jack Johnson. It's not just gloom and doom. Black folk were making strides in terms of capitalism in the capitalistic structure. But there's always this backlash that black folk have to deal with. And we see that even in the 21st century in regard to political mobility amongst athletes with Colin Kaepernick. So again, there's these waves of white supremacist angst, if you will.
Wow, if you just tuned in, that's Dr. Will Boone, who is the chair of the Liberal Studies Department at Winston-Salem State University, and also the director of the Simon Green Atkins Scholars Program up there too. And you can hear they have a good one in Dr. Boone. So I want to go back to something you said again. You said unbridled optimism. And that's an important phrase because we do tend to look at certain periods in the American epoch as all doom and gloom. But you did a great job of articulating that there were these pockets of mobility and positivity and these moments of glee, if you will, that often come via sports, correct?
Yep.
So sometimes we live vicariously through our sports icons that can play negatively too, because it can give a false sense of a holistic improvement. But we're living through this one person. So let me go back to that just a little bit, Doc. So you have the Civil War. Of course, thank God the North wins. And so you have Reconstruction, and then you have a backlash, and Jack Johnson is buttressed right in this backlash, rescue me if you will. So his stretching out to kind of become the prototype of the first African-American mega sports star that has all the swag of Deion Sanders on steroids, and Allen Iverson and anybody else that you want to name. So he's from Galveston, Texas. So let's go a little deeper into the man. He's from Galveston, Texas. Big shout out to UGK. I think Bun B of UGK had a birthday yesterday. Big shout out to the brothers down there with that Houston rap scene too. What's Galveston, Texas like for an African-American male that's trying to start a boxing career, just trying to be somebody? What's that like?
Yeah, well, Texas has a very, very interesting history along racial lines, but I think Galveston is unique in that it was sort of like an entertainment enclave on
okay.
the border. But I think what's important to Jack Johnson's story, and I think there are parallels we can draw to many African American leaders and figures, even whether it be Du Bois, whether it be Washington, or whether it be Garvey. This notion of movement, right? That in order for Jack Johnson to make his bones, if you will, it was imperative that he extend beyond his home space, his home base, so to speak. So I think that there were how can I say it? There were many anchors. There were he had a strong foundation in terms of his blackness. I would say I think he was firmly grounded in his blackness. But I think he realized very early on that in order for him to make his mark on the world, he would have to extend his reaches beyond Galveston. And so I think it was a launching pad in the same way, Great Barrington, Massachusetts was a launching pad for Du Bois. But I think as many black men, black women, he realized that in order for him to reach his full potential, he would have to extend beyond his hometown.
Yeah, he had to see beyond his immediate surroundings, like so many of us, even today. And you brought up black women at the time, and and Miss Good News is here holding down the entire.
I'm listening, taking notes, Dr. Boone. I'm taking notes.
Me too. And for black women, and big shout out to everybody who participated in the big read this week. Mm-hmm. And special thanks to the National Endowment of the Arts and the collaboration with Livingstone College. And I told parents out there, that's the kind of things that you can expect when you send your young person to Livingstone. All of the panelists were excellent this week, from the kickoff to the Great White Hope movie last night. And the selected panelists were awesome. And wow, you should have been there if you weren't. And we got one more movie tonight that everybody should check out to kind of turn away from the versus battle between Ghostface Killer and Raekwon for just a few moments, for those of you that are gonna hold down Wu-Tang tonight. Right. And check out some more Jack Johnson history tonight at Livingstone College is doing that on Zoom, I believe. Doc, talk a little bit about how this environment of Jack Johnson's fertile soil, if you will, in Texas, Galveston, Texas, and, you know, America at that time, how do you think that would shape his attitudes towards black women? We gotta go there, people.
Let's go.
We can't avoid it.
That's right.
We gotta face this head on. One of the most controversial aspects of Brother Johnson in all of his athletic prowess, accomplishment, and achievement is the fact that the brother chose to date across the color line post-Civil War, recent Civil War not too long ago. How do you think Galveston, Texas, and America shaped his thought, his image of black women as a future choice of his matrimony, who he would marry? And Dr. Boone, be very careful, because Miss Good News is right here in the cut with a sniper thing going. So talk to us about that, and Miss Good News might have something to say about that too. How does that shape his dating and his marital choice?
Well, you know that's a very, very thorny issue. But I'll try to present some options, right? Some options, right? So, and I'll pose it in terms of a question. So, was Jack Johnson's? I would assume it was a preference. I don't know, right? But is his preference proclivity towards white women? Is this a power play? Essentially, is this about dominance of white women, or somehow trying to oppress white women? Or I don't know. Or is this merely a love situation, right? Is this is for some reason? So I'm not sure. How I'm going to read into, and then or is this some kind of sexual preference, or in other words, I'm very, very, very slow to place judgment on individuals' dating or romantic preferences. However, I understand the political dimensions, right? So, for example, if we want to take this sort of issue to task, we could talk about somebody like Kamala Harris, right, who has a white husband. What does that mean, right? Does this mean that she doesn't like black men? I wouldn't go that far. But as a sort of radical, progressive black thinker, I wouldn't rule that out. But I don't know if that's fair to judge somebody solely based on their preference in terms of dating. So, is this a colorist issue? Right? Does this have something to do with Jack Johnson's dark skin and the white and his affinity for whiteness? I don't know. These are valid questions, but I'm very, very hesitant to make a declarative statement about somebody's. Though I want to, particularly in public space. So I'll be interested to hear what your co-host has to say about that. I mean, because on one level we're talking about how we feel.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? So that's why I'm really. I mean, I'm pissed off at Kamala, but is that fair to individuals? Because we know that human beings are very complex.
Yes.
So in some ways, I think we boil people down to these essentialist racial beings that I don't know if it's always fair. But I'll stop there, and I'm going to be.
So I am definitely in agreement, because I think that there is so many different variables to choosing who you want to be with. And so, it could be, maybe it was a power move, because you think in that time, if you date someone of the other race, then they could probably potentially get you a little bit further than you can get yourself.
Up your credit score.
Yeah, up the credit score. Did they even think about that back then? I don't know, but
right, Equifax.
Right. Was that a thing? I don't know.
My fault.
But and then too, it could have been that just the struggle of being a black man or being black could make you want to be with somebody who has a life that's much easier, because you deal with a lot of people, like Dr. Boone said, that think that everything is gloom and they become bitter. And you can't really fault people for becoming bitter. It's just people deal with things differently. And so it could be that. It could be so many different things. But I just, for the women, because a lot of men, And a lot of women, I will say this first, a lot of women can come off as being bitter and, oh my God, he's dating a white woman, he's married to a white woman. It's preference, you know. I mean, you choose a tall guy over a short guy. I mean, are you prejudiced now because, you know, against the short people? But I think that it's preference, and I think, like Dr. Boone says, that we judge people too quickly, and we don't really assess the situation, and we judge people off of our experiences or our thoughts, and that's not fair to, you know, hold people to your expectations. And so I will say, you know, I know some women like, girl, bye, he should have been with a black woman. But I must say, Miss Good News, I think that you love who you want to love. If that was the situation, if it was based off of love, solely off of love, then I think that that's right. If it was based off of anything else, then obviously it's an issue. If you marry somebody because you hate yourself and you hate your skin color, then you have an issue. It's not because I'm a black woman that you have an issue. You have an issue no matter what. Like, that's
Right.
you know. And so hopefully it was out of love, and then, you know, and maybe this guy was trying to live his best life, you know. He trying to like okay, you know, like you just said, he was coming up in a time where people were fighting back. Like, okay, listen, I'm trying to build something. I don't want to keep thinking like my mom and my grandmother. They
Right.
had to struggle, they had different things, and so I'm the first boxer, and I'm living it up. People feed me grapes. I don't know.
They were.
I don't know.
They probably were. They probably were.
You know, so he probably wasn't thinking about that, like what would it look like to his culture of people. Maybe he was just having fun, you know. We don't know his sexual preference or anything of that nature, you know. But that's my thoughts. That's my 2 cents.
I think he got the grapes. I do. I mean, when you read some of the stories, and you know, Dr. Parrish even had some very powerful anecdotes about his comments on, because and for the listeners, you know, the Jack Johnson lens is almost always seen through the lens of his interracial dating. Almost, you know, they talk about his boxing prowess. The first person to record a major knockout in the boxing arena. Then it goes right to his wives that were 3 and all white. And he talked about on several occasions his disdain, for lack of a better word, with black women. And that I think he even said that they always robbed him. Which are certainly Jack Johnson's comments, not mine. Do not send your letters to me. I'm a big supporter and a big fan of black women to the day. And so, but real quick, Doc, before we let you go, because we got Charles Whitfield coming in at about 10:40. So, because we have an issue inside our race with colorism.
Yes, we do.
You know,
we do.
My mother always debriefed and cautioned me about how I would, as a young man, when it's just, quote unquote, us at the cookout, how you had to be careful, particularly if you are of a certain hue, with how you approach that. It better be in respect, and it better be in an acknowledgement of the holistic beauty of the entire spectrum. Doc, do we do a disservice? Based on some of the things Miss Good News said, do we do a disservice to Jack Johnson by winnowing him down to his wives?
Most definitely, because essentially that was what the establishment did, right? They kind of disregarded his entrepreneurship, his sort of Renaissance man status, his status as a world champion, and boiled him down to a lover of white women. You know, the Mann Act conviction. So I mean, I think it's very, very difficult. Like I said, this is a very stony issue because on one hand, all relationships, particularly romantic, are transactional, right? So there's always this transaction.
That's another show, Doc.
Well, but I'm just saying, and so I think some of this is like Freudian psychology, right? You know, we try to boil it down. So essentially, when we view Johnson through the lens of his relationships, I think we run the risk of falling on stereotypes, right? Because we could say, well, why does he date these white prostitutes? Is it because these white women are more liberal or liberated sexually? Or is it because these black women are more mischievous or more criminal minded? Or do these white women love him because of his sexual I mean, there's this tendency to fall on the stereotypes, and again, I feel like we rob individuals of their humanity. But, however, I don't think Jack Johnson or Kamala Harris or any of these other black figures, quote unquote, are above reproach or above critique. So I think the critique is
Come on, Doc. Come on, Doc.
We have to be very careful in how far we go with it, right? We want to treat each person as an individual. We don't want broad strokes because people are complex.
Hey, blame Hood Theological Seminary for that call and response moment that I just had, because it's right down the street. I couldn't hold that back, and I like the way you were fair and balanced to how that sometimes needs to be critiqued, not to restate what you just said, but at the same time, it's a milieu. I like the word you use. It's not simple, and like Miss Good News said, it sometimes it's just what you like. Mm-hmm. And should you be crucified for that?
And let me just say one more thing. Okay, please. So about Jack Johnson and his him saying, okay, like all that may have been his experiences, but what I think as black men and women should be more cautious about and conscious about how they describe black women and men as a whole. Like, just because that was your experience, maybe you keep being in the wrong place, and that's why you keep having women rob you. Like, so if you at the whorehouse, you gonna experience a lot of whore things. Come on. Just saying. And so I don't think that it's fair to sum up a whole group of people. That's how racism and all that stuff starts to happen. Right. When you stereotype all women based off of your one experience. So for that statement, for him saying that, I think that was ignorant, and I wouldn't base my choices off of just that one experience. Like, okay, well, I've had multiple experiences with women robbing me. I would more question myself, why do I keep picking women that rob me? And then you think of the black women back then, maybe they didn't have anything, I don't know, and I'm not justifying it because it doesn't make it right, but I just think that that's a bit crazy. And then the other part is, I don't understand why people do this. I mean, Dr. Boone, maybe you can help me out with this. Even with Kirk Franklin, okay? Every time people look at something that someone is doing, Kirk Franklin make great music. Right. But then they associate the things that they don't believe in or they don't want him to do and say, you know what, I'm going to cancel him. He cussed out his kid. I'm not listening to no more of his music. R. Kelly, he did what he did. It was wrong. I'm not listening to any more of his music. But if the music is separate from his actions, why do everybody try to mesh everything together instead of looking at things separately? Because sometimes you have to look at things separately. Like, the man was a great boxer, and then
phenomenal boxer,
and then he loved white women.
Addendum, and then he loved white women. Hey,
but I think that's a valid question. But again, I think we have to be very careful in terms of the cancel culture. I'm not a fan of cancel culture, but I do think it's okay to deconstruct public figures, right? But I think the question is, how far do we go? So one of the best examples is somebody who I look up to, but I'm very conflicted. I'm not R. Kelly. I was about to say R. Kelly. Miles Davis. But very similar figure, because Miles Davis is a jazz giant. However, he was very abusive. He admits such in his autobiography, Miles, right? And so I mean, it is a question that I think is valid. If for example, if there's a white artist that is a white supremacist, do black people still support that artist? That's a really thorny issue. One could argue that yes, we may want to cancel this particular artist if they don't like black folk, but I'll point out the Jewish community is very clear on their position in terms of anti-Semitism. They don't play those kind of games. If you're anti-Semitic, you cancel.
Very true. Very true. Dr. Boone, we want to thank you for coming on today. You've been phenomenal as usual. And I'm going to see if I can talk to the good people at this great radio station so that you may need to go a little deeper at another time on all of that, because you just have voluminous amount of information to share. And we appreciate you, Doc. Thank you for coming on.
Can I have one final thought, Will?
No, you may not, Doc. I'm upset about the way you critique the sisters. Now, go ahead. Go ahead, Doc. Go ahead, Doc.
Well, one thing this is the last thing that I'll say that I think sometimes we take pugilism as a form of protest or fighting, and we tend to minimize the power of that. In other words, there is something very powerful about one, not for that matter, a woman. I was going to say a man, but now in 2021, a woman having physical dominance over an opponent. And I think that that's something that, if you go back and read Du Bois's work, I don't think we always fully understand that and appreciate the power in the art or the sweet science of boxing. And then I just want to end with one observation by Zora Neale Hurston and characteristics of Negro expression. And I always point this out because I think it's really important to understand how Black people view fighting. She says, in the Black community, and I'm paraphrasing, there are no higher art than lovemaking and fighting.
Wow.
And so again, we think about fighting, and then I think back to my high school and in my neighborhood where people were fighting, and it was a spectacle. Right? It wasn't just, two people. It was actually a spectacle. And so I think if we understand, if we broaden our scope and tend to and look at Jack Johnson in a cultural context, a more, how can I say, organic African-American lens, we'll come up with very different outcomes than if we look at him through dominant culture.
Wow. Big shout out to the legend Zora Neale Hurston and the folks down in Florida. As her phenomenal book, legendary book, Their Eyes Were Watching God. Big fan of hers. Dr. Boone, he's the pride of Orange, New Jersey. Big shout out to the Bricks and Naughty by Nature and Queen Latifah and all those good people. Thank you for coming on, Doc.
Yes, thank y'all. I'll stay tuning in.
Thank you. And while we get Charles Whitfield queued up, who is record mogul, co-founder of Hidden Beach Recordings, helped discover Jill Scott. And we all know what that's about, and so many others. Charles Whitfield told me about 3 years before Drake came out, man, it's this guy that's going to take over the game. That was on Nickelodeon. I said, Nickelodeon? And lo and behold, it was Drake. So Charles Whitfield will be queued up in just a minute. While we're waiting on that, I want to give a couple shout outs to some good people that I mentioned, Hood Theological Seminary. Reverend Kim McTillman, she was on earlier this morning, representing that great orator she is. Dr. Mr. A.L. Fleming. Mr. A.L. Fleming, Vice President of Institutional Advancement at Albany State University. I saw his name pop up. He is doing extremely big things down there. Big shout out to you. And Dr. Nkrumah Lewis, a great sociologist. I saw his name in the house earlier. And Dr. Vicky Pettigrew, great educator. All the folks I saw chiming in and tuning in. So thanks to you guys. And a few more things before we get Charles queued up. I'll say to Miss Good News, Jack Johnson's story just has so much reverberation. So as you see interracial dating now, so when you're in Charlotte and you see a pro athlete that is that's their preference, does that rub you some kind of way, Miss Good News, or do you have that larger understanding?
I have a larger understanding, and then the other thing is, I will say this personally. My brother, he's African American, and he's married to a woman, my sister, who is African American and white. So she's mixed. And until she became a part of our family, there were things and conversations and thoughts that, you would have that kind of changed just based off the fact that she has a mother that she loves just like I love my mom. And she's like, why would certain things be said, or certain jokes be made and it wasn't funny? And so, and then my nephews, so they're black and white, so now I am just more careful and more mindful to how I say things about certain things, when it comes to races. I mean, I just think as a people, we have to get past our bitterness, and be able to forgive for whatever reason. So I think a lot of people just don't forgive, and they're bitter, and that's why they can't think on a bigger spectrum of interracial marriages and all this other type of stuff, because at the end of the day, it's not directly affecting you if this NBA star is married to this white woman versus a black woman. Because if he's married to the black woman, you still not gonna get none of that money. So like, it's still none of your business. Okay. And then I know some people try to go deeper, like, well, we don't want to cancel out our race by just keep keep marrying and all this. But listen, life is just so much bigger than that, and I don't see myself at the end of my days like counting out how many interracial marriages I could have saved or changed. I don't think we're gonna care. You know.
Do that. Wow, powerful insights from you representing all the sisters in the world.
Yeah.
So I think we got Charles Whitfield queued up.
Okay.
And I'll introduce him again. Charles is a storied, well-known record label mogul, and you can't big him up enough because he has really changed the game in the music industry, and is a 2020 North Carolina Music Hall of Fame inductee, along with Jermaine Dupri and several others.
Right.
So wanted to get Charles on the show, and Charles's brother is Fred Whitfield, the president of the Charlotte Hornets and minority owner of the team. And I kind of wanted to walk the discussion a little bit further up to today and kind of get from Charles, how things. We have Charles there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here with you.
Hey, good morning, C. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
Man, I'm doing good. First of all, thank you for coming on this morning. I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. First of all, I want to ask you, C, do you think, and you work a lot with NBA players and entertainers, do you think they know the story of Jack Johnson and what he went through?
I would probably say this generation more than likely probably does not know. In my opinion, I just would say, as much as, they're around and on social media and whatnot, I would probably think, just in my opinion, that I don't really think they do know.
Got you. So yeah, we have that challenge sometimes in the world, in our community, of historical knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And do you find that certain NBA teams or certain NFL teams take time to, particularly via this summer, the NBA did an awesome job with the George Floyd piece and the slogans on the back of the jerseys? Do you think we need to take more time to pull players aside and kind of show them that Jack Johnson story and how it has implications today? Do you think execs would do that and kind of give them a little teaser of that historical knowledge? See?
I think it really just depends on each individual team, because each individual team, from, what they do. And I just think, one, I would probably say this year would be tough just because, quite honestly, from being on someone that is close to someone with the team, honestly, their main concern right now is trying to keep the players healthy and, as healthy as they can, in this unusual season with the pandemic and the amount of COVID testing that everyone has to go through. The teams actually have very minimal contact. The players actually have very minimal contact with each other than, when they're on the court, and so I think, I would say going into maybe next season, things could get better, but, quite honestly, I think, for right now, they're just trying to get through the season in the safest way as possible. So I think, I could see next year, them trying to have, after practice, a session for 15 to 20 minutes where they try and educate the guys more on what's going on. But honestly, I think from a health standpoint, they're really just trying to concentrate getting through. And I think it's, right now, as you said, with what happened with George Floyd, I think it's up to the individual player with their beliefs and whatnot to do their own research. And I think they make it, from the NBA Players Association as well, which, represents the players, which, Chris Paul is the union president and stuff like that. I think, it's also a hand to hand, with the different teams on how they, get knowledge and information to them. But I just know in this season, it's just been so unusual that I'll probably say it would be just tough. Not that it's not important, but they're just trying to maintain, because every day, before games, after games, these players are getting tested. And a lot of times, they're not even able to have organized practices. They got to go in and shoot around in different shifts, for protection. It's just a very unusual climate we're in right now.
Very, very. And I'm glad you raised that in the midst of this discussion and anything else that's going on in the world. There is COVID.
That's right.
And so let me pivot a little bit, see, because Dr. Boone touched on how Jack Johnson was one of the first to kind of stretch out and be entrepreneurial and look into, for example, ownership. There was rumors that he had some ownership in the Cotton Club in New York City, and he was one of the first to think outside of the sport and how this money that he was making could launch himself as a entrepreneur change maker. With LeBron James and his investment in education, and now I think he's a minority owner as of the other day in the Boston Red Sox, and of course Michael Jordan's pioneering aspects of the Charlotte Hornets. And what do you think the future is bright for this to increase and continue amongst black athletes today, to take more entrepreneur steps or ownership in teams? Where do you think we're going with that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I absolutely think it's a lot of upside to it. And matter of fact, it's already happening. I mean, I think if you look around, I mean, obviously you talked about, LeBron's taking to a minority partnership, with the Red Sox. But as you say, Michael, unless somebody can stand correct me, I think Michael's the only majority African-American owner of a team.
Yeah.
But if you look around, an NBA team, but if you look around, Patrick Mahomes has ownership, I believe, a minority partnership in the Kansas City Royals. If you look around, I think, different guys, are already doing a bunch of things that you may not even know about,
Right.
So I do think it's definitely an upside because, the amount of money, if you look at Magic Johnson's, who's had ownership in the Lakers, he now has, ownership in the Dodgers. So I think, one, it's already happening. I mean, and it's a lot of, other people, and maybe not just in teams, but if you look at, a guy like a Junior Bridgman who played for the Milwaukee Bucks, who has, ownership in a lot of, restaurant chains. If you look at, what Shaquille O'Neal is doing, with a lot of things that he's doing, I think it's already happening. And, and some teams, it's the running back, Alvin Kamara for the Saints.
I just saw that.
In a NASCAR team.
Right.
As well as, Michael partnered with Denny Hamlin, and now they have ownership in a NASCAR team.
Right.
And so I think, it's already happening. And I think seeing, what, like you said, what LeBron's been able to do from a school standpoint, the different things. If you look at, what Steph Curry's done, with his Under Armour brand.
True.
And going back and, with his brand supporting, Davidson and some other teams. LeBron's Nike deal now, they've included FAMU in their deal. And ironically enough, before I jumped on the call, I was literally watching the ESPN Plus Why Not Us that features North Carolina Central basketball coach LaVelle Moulton, who's a good friend, that is executive produced by Chris Paul and Stephen A. Smith, who's a Winston-Salem State grad.
So I think,
stuff that's already happening, in our face. And, obviously with COVID, everybody's been, in some degree, forced to stay home. Fortunately for me, I literally got my second vaccine on Thursday and still trying to recover a little bit. But hopefully with, people getting the vaccines and,
Right.
hopefully in 6 to 8 months, we can start getting back to some form of normalcy. But I think a lot of the players, are already seeing other guys that played before them or contemporaries with them already stretching into ownership. And, I think to me, it's only going to continue. I mean, I think if it's something that a player wants to do, they definitely can look out at other contemporaries to see, how it makes it happen. And I think LeBron from, Maverick Carter, who runs a lot of his business, has been engaged in, a lot of the deals that LeBron does. And, whether it's from the undefeated or, different things, I think it's guys out there now, showing the guys coming up that ownership, is possible.
Yeah, you mentioned some great developments, and I'm glad that you did, because those things are already happening, as you said. So appreciate you adding that. And I'll be remiss if I didn't mention that Charles played basketball at the North Carolina Central University around the time Coach Moulton did. I won't give his years away, but he's a proud Eagle and lifts them up every chance he gets. And I just wanted to, before we let you go, congratulate you again on your North Carolina Music Hall of Fame induction award. And I see Miss Good News might want to grab you at some point to dig about that music background that trail you blazed. But congrats on that as well, my brother.
Yes, congratulations.
Yeah.
No, thank you, and appreciate it. And I mean, it's a definitely highlight and honor. And when I got the word, is you don't get into business or do work to get recognized like that. But as I told the chairman of the North Carolina Music Hall of Fame, Debbie McFadder, when I got the call, to me, I don't know any bad Hall of Fames.
I know that's right.
Your elementary school Hall of Fame.
I know that's
right. to be inducted into the North Carolina Music Hall of Fame, being a resident of North Carolina, to be, going in, as you mentioned, William, with Jermaine Dupri, also his dad, Michael Malden, who's a music exec, who's done huge things, is going in. Donald Lawrence, who's a big music producer, a lot of gospel stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
He's going in. So it's actually a very great class that I'm blessed to go in, with. I think, even the Legends Award, one of the legends that they're honoring is Roberta Flack. So to be around, that type of people is definitely humbling. And, but what I also want to do is, I honestly enough, up until about 5 years ago, didn't know it was a North Carolina Music Hall of Fame until Anthony Hamilton went in. And, once Anthony went in, through his manager, Eli Davis, I started getting engaged with the Hall of Fame. And, good friend, Ninth Wonder, who's a music producer as well as an educator.
Yeah,
he went in a couple years ago. And, I'm obviously for the 2020 class, through COVID, they didn't have the actual award ceremony for us. And it looks like, it will happen at some point. As I was talking to the chairman yesterday, it's going to happen probably in October of this year.
Okay.
But, it's a true honor. And I mean, the Hall of Fame is the best of the best. So to be honored in that way is definitely very humbling, and also a blessing.
Oh, yes.
Well, we're going to have you here at WLJZ 107.1 FM to talk all about it. So, yeah, I'll be reaching out.
I know that's right. That's problem. Big time. And breaking news, I'm going in a Hall of Fame as well. It's the Southwest Greensboro between 9th and 10th Street Hall of Fame for people who had rap tapes that never came out. So I'll be giving you more information about they ain't having no ceremony though.
Look, he had me waiting for it too. I'm like, let me see what he talking about.
My tape's still in cassette form. I never transferred it to CD. But anyway, at least I know one, right?
That's
I know Charles Whitfield. Big shout out, Charles, man. Thank you for taking time out your day, man, and we'll be back at you real soon, my brother.
No, we'll continue to continue work y'all are doing on the show. And I think you got my cousin Malcolm from Detroit called in, who's a wealth of knowledge as well. So, glad to be able to jump on and share a little bit of knowledge. So you guys have a safe and blessed day, and look forward to connecting with you soon.
And you do the same, my brother. Thank you so much.
All right, take care.
That was Charles Whitfield, you guys.
Wow.
Record label mogul, North Carolina Music Hall of Fame inductee 2020, right here on WLJZ 107.1 in the building with Miss Good News and Prayers. And we are discussing the great Jack Johnson, the rise and fall. And Charles gave us a great context on what that means today, how his story, his epic, translates to today's athlete.
Yeah.
And everything that he did.
Because I'm going to tell you what I got from Mr. Charles here. So, when I believe that with Jack Johnson, to have been the first, the trailblazer of that particular sport, and just in that culture, to be the first, you have to take on a different mindset than the people around you in order to go further. They're not going to understand the things that you do and the things that you say, because you just have a different mental state of mind. And I like, even with Mr. Charles talking, and we're saying, education, he's like, that's important. We know it's important, but what our focus is right now is we have to do this. And so I think a lot of times with even Jack Johnson, him coming up and being the first, he probably wasn't thinking about what other people thought he should have been thinking about at the time. And if
Probably
he would have slowed down to do that, he may have not made it as far, winning all of the fights he won and everything.
That's right.
That's what I got.
I share that with you. Think big out there, and go after it. And like you said, don't preoccupy yourself with what they're gonna think. Do it your way. Be prayed up and launch your ship on that ocean.
That's it.
Success. I mean, for real. So, big shout out to Charles Whitfield. And I think we're queuing up Malcolm Teasdale. Now, let me give you all another introduction. We got a power-packed 2 hours.
Yes.
We got Miss Good News. We had Dr. Boone. We had Charles Whitfield. Now we're going to Malcolm Teasdale, who co-wrote the 2nd edition of Howard White's book, Believe to Achieve. And he wrote the curriculum for that. Howard White is the person he's the VP for Brand Jordan with Nike, and he came up with the idea of Brand Jordan. He wouldn't say that because he's modest, but that's what Howard White did. And he's an African-American male, and we just shout him out. And so, we're still waiting on Malcolm there, but that's who Malcolm is. Malcolm co-wrote that book, Believe to Achieve, and he's going to come on shortly and talk a little bit. He's going to dive a little deeper in the whole how Jack Johnson's story reverberates to today's athlete. Malcolm has worked with people like Worldwide West. I know some of you NBA fans know who that is. Hopefully I'm not in trouble for saying that. Because Worldwide West is really kind of under the radar. Well, I think he's the VP now for the New York Knicks. But Malcolm has interfaced with these type of figures, and he's the cousin of Charles Whitfield. They closely connected to what goes on in the National Basketball Association. So we're gonna chop it up with him and he comes to us from the Boogie Down Bronx, as I said. That brother grew up with the Digging in the Crates crew. Big L, Fat Joe, Kid Capri, DJ Technician. He was right there doing hip-hop with all of those gentlemen. Then Malcolm went on to attend the great Tuskegee University, formerly Tuskegee Institute, where he did a great job there, graduated, and became a powerful educator in the state of Michigan. So much so that he was recognized by Nike for his great educational exploits, and then recruited by Howard White to come on board there and write his book, help write his 2nd edition of his book. So while we're waiting on Malcolm, I'm gonna let's go a little further with this this piece on Jack Johnson, Miss Good News.
Okay.
I'm going to lift up Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois,
Mm-hmm.
who talked about the double consciousness of black folk. And we all know his seminal work, Souls of Black Folk, where he talked about, it really gave us our foundation for cultural studies in a lot of ways. So I'm going to go from that to saying the interaction of black women and black men was, as it is with Jack Johnson always. Last night it was on Front Street. I'm gonna just say it like that. Those scholars that happened to be sisters, and the brothers on the panel that were scholars as well, had some real strong opinions, saying that Jack, in some instances, may have forgotten who he was, saying that his relationship choices were a outgrowth of the fact that he thought he was that thing, to the point where he thought he could do that. There's a quick story about Jack Johnson I'm going to tell before I ask you the question.
Okay.
Jack was, and I don't know if this story is apocryphal or true, but they say it's true. Jack was speeding through the state of Georgia, headed to, he was retired by that time, had served his time in incarceration, and he was pulled over by the law enforcement authorities there for speeding. And they say, you know, he rolled down the window, and we have to have the talk with our sons and daughters. That's big now. Always been big. And we know about the Green Book, where African Americans had this book that taught us where we could lodge, where we could get food, where we could gas up in safety. So Jack, all that's going on. That's the context. Jack is speeding through Georgia, probably down there where Dr. Fleming in Albany State area somewhere. And the law enforcement officer says, "You're speeding." Yes, I know who you are, and that's going to be $50. Now, if you know what $50 were in the early 1900s, for some of us in the now, Jack said to the law enforcement officer, "Okay, $50. Here you go. Matter of fact, here's 50 more. But my math says that's 100." And the officer says, "Why are you giving me 100? It's a $50 ticket today." And he says, "I'm gonna give you 50 more because I'm after the fight. I'm coming back through Georgia doing just as fast. I'm gonna be speeding just as fast. But go ahead and take the other 50." And okay, I think we got Malcolm now.
Okay.
I ain't cheating you, Miss Good News. We're gonna come back.
I'm gonna remember the story.
We got some time. So on the line we have author, educator, none other than from the South Bronx, the South Bronx, the boogie down, Malcolm Teasdale. Are you with me? Malcolm, do we have you on the line?
He coming.
Malcolm, you can't give two interviews at the same time. Tell the Associated Press that you're with LC this morning.
That's right.
107.1 FM. Okay.
So I'm gonna go ahead and answer it. No, you gotta ask the question now. So you told me about what he was gonna do, the story. Yeah. So he said he'll go 50 because I'm gonna be doing the same speed coming back.
Right.
So the question is,
and he was with one of the Caucasian women that he was dating at that time. Right. But the legend says he wasn't sweating bullets. He was a G about his.
So he was sure of himself.
Very. Yeah, the braggadocious, confident athlete.
Well, I mean, you know, you start experiencing different things from your peers and your family. Like, oh, I do this all the time. It would build a sense of confidence. I hope, well, maybe cockiness too, but you got to stay humble, you know. So yeah, I would think that, man, that's pretty impressive. I don't know, maybe he just had like his own thing, like, you know, you have to have a face. They say you keep your face, and maybe he had to keep his face, and then maybe part of that was just really who he was. Like, hey, I mean, because it takes courage to be the first. It takes courage.
Pioneers, yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
to
it
be to be an entrepreneur, it takes courage to come into a room when you know a person don't like you and they just want to use you. And okay, we want your ability,
Right.
but we really can care less about you. It didn't matter if it was you or somebody else. We just glad you could do what you could do.
Very true.
I mean, so I'm pretty sure he had to have his guards up to make it. You know, and maybe it is cocky to some people, but maybe that's what kept him protected, and he felt that, you know.
Yeah, and it's common in athletics.
Mm-hmm.
When you're on that level, you've beat everybody. You have to have that I'm the greatest,
That's
like
it.
Muhammad Ali said, to be able to do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Now let me flip it on you. Do the sisters have the same agency to date outside of their race without the criticism, or is it equal in that respect?
I'm not.
Because Jack intimated in one interview that it was. He said, well, they can do that.
I mean,
I'm gonna chime in on that one. I think that it's a little less simply because of women. It's just who they are. Like they have less of a. I wouldn't say they have less of a struggle, but it's less backlash because they just feel like, okay, well, maybe she done gave every a few black men a chance and it's just not working. It's just not her cup of tea. It just doesn't work out for her. So she tried something and it worked for her. But as a black man, it doesn't matter. You could have went through a number of women who are black descent or of that race or our race, and you're supposed to keep trying. It doesn't matter what you do as an individual. It's just more or less that you should have kept trying, like no matter what.
And I hate that it's like that, but yeah, for some people it is like that. But I don't know. I guess maybe black women do get a pass. I mean, I know some people who like married outside of their race, and the conversation. I'm gonna say the conversation is not as bitter when it comes to a black woman dating outside her race. It's more of a sexual conversation. Now that's honest. Like, so yeah, you gonna give it up for this? Like, how's that working? That's the kind of conversation. Versus with a black man marrying outside of his race. Oh my God, we need more black men, and you gonna cut our population down and blah 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 blah. And I guess they get that because women. There's some black women out here looking for some black men, and they feel like they all taken by a different race, and so it's like. But
their numbers.
Yeah, but it's selfish to blame black men for that. Like, that's not his fault that there's not another option for you. You just got to make yourself available.
So if we look at HBCUs, where and ladies and gentlemen, from the podcast, names are not important. With Mac and Free, we've got Mac and Free calling in the second hour, so they may be about to be queued up, but I gotta walk this a little further,
right? Just
to say that when we go to HBCUs, we always hear the statistics that it's 14-1 or 18-1 at some schools, right. And for those that may not know, if you're in Seattle, Washington, and you don't know what that's about, 14 women to one male student at the college, which kind of speaks to the percentages that you talk to. Sisters may feel that, hey, I'll be waiting forever if I have to wait for an African-American male. Right. And then they have to have their head on straight.
You have to have it.
That
and
one.
And don't make that. So the issue wouldn't be of a man dating in his race or outside his race. The issue is waiting. The issue would be self-control. And are you even ready for that black man that you claim you want? Are you really ready for that, or are you being the man?
It's another show, y'all. Are you ready?
Are you ready?
Because we talk about external.
Right.
Like, am I going to have options? But we don't talk about if we've. And there's a lot of memes on social media about that. Like,
Yes.
you got to have yourself ready first.
Right.
You know.
But I mean, it's so many. It is so many different ways. So women, I can feel y'all. I understand some of the conversation that women do have is that, especially if a man is married or dating a black woman, and then he makes it big, and then now you're dating outside of your race. Like, it could be looked at as, oh, I'm about to upgrade now. So are we a downgrade? Like, so you just settling for black people? Like, this is horrible. But then it's proven that people like things that they don't understand. Exotic. What's exotic is something that's not your norm.
Yeah.
So all of these different things play a factor. So, I mean, I just couldn't spend my time mad at one black man for marrying somebody out their race. You know.
And let's face it, what you said about when somebody makes it big.
Right.
The making it big made it a story.
Made it a story.
Yes. Jack Johnson is the heavyweight champion of the world.
Yeah, because if he wasn't, they wouldn't care about Jack Johnson. They'd be like, girl, I dated him 5 times and I broke up with him every time. Like, he didn't have his stuff together. But once he make it.
I'm going to send you to them. Like.
Yeah, I'm going to send you the number and everything. You can take a shot at it. Maybe he'll work for you. But once they make it, it's like, we made it.
Right. Yeah.
You know, so
yeah,
it can be looked all kinds of ways.
Okay, I think we got Benjamin Free on the line from Names Are Not Important, the Mac and Free podcast. Let me cue you up a little bit about who Benjamin is for those of you who may not know.
You may be introducing the wrong person, McKee.
Oh, this is Dale. It's Dale the Funky Homo Sapien.
I'm on too.
Oh, y'all both on. I can't do this. I can't have y'all at the same time. I heard your last show. I can't deal with that. I heard your last show where y'all went in. No.
That's cool.
No, but anyway, y'all just stay there. We don't. Since you both there, just would you be on your best behavior, please?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I will do my best, brother.
Yeah, okay. If you've heard that show, you know, not like we used to say when we were small, not. So, well, I'll talk to, since Ben's on too, I'm going to start with you, Dale. So the question is, and that's not Dale the Funky Homo Sapien, who I think was Ice Cube's brother. Is that right, y'all? Y'all hip-hop historians too.
They were cousins.
They were cousins.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, because that's the same thing in the black community.
Right.
No,
same thing.
So no, that's Del Ficio McDonald of Names Are Not Important, the Mac and Free podcast. And and he's the president of the internet version of the LeBron James fan club. That's an inside joke. But what I wanted to ask, we've talked on numerous occasions about the evolution of the African-American athlete in areas. So, you know, the statement that came out of Fox News a few months ago was, shut up and dribble. Y'all remember that, shut up and dribble, which one of the announcers, I think it was Laura Ingraham or somebody, said that is not the place of the athlete. And we're going to say African-American athlete in this case, to be weighing in on non-athletic issues.
Right.
What say you, Del Ficio, about post-George Floyd, LeBron James' willingness to step to the mic and be like Jim Brown or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? Do you see athletes increasing that level of a mouthpiece on socio-political issues? What you say?
I think it's a good thing that we are in a place where our black athletes are willing to be role models. You know, coming from much like for social purposes, civil purposes, much like they were at a time before then. But I also think that we sometimes fail to realize that we're in a civil rights movement right now, and how important it is for our athletes to step forward now. Because there is, again, it goes back to the influence why it's so important. Why was Black Panther the movie so important? It's that influence. You see something that looks like you, and then you believe that you can also achieve that same thing. So the younger these athletes get in terms of their social prowess and being able to go out and speak to the public about social issues and civil issues in our country regarding minorities, I think it's going to continue to be very powerful to see someone like a LeBron James, or even some of the other players that don't have the same kind of cachet and stature of a LeBron James to do the same thing.
Now I got to stop you, Dale, because I love your answer, but you led off by saying the word role model. And I think it was Sir Charles Barkley a few years back that had a commercial that said, "I am not a role model.
Absolutely.
Don't put that on me to raise your children." So what do you think about that pushback from some athletes saying, don't put that on me?
Well, I mean, it's okay to be a sideline advocate. And I think what Charles Barkley was saying was, I'd rather be a sideline advocate.
I like that term. Can I patent that, Dale? A sideline advocate. That's what I've been my whole life. But go ahead.
a lot of us are. But with Charles Barkley wasn't the last sideline advocate. The last sideline advocate was Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods was also a sideline advocate that said, "Hey, Black America, please don't forget my mother in all of this. I am part Asian." And the Black community kind of expelled on it. Well, I will say Black Twitter. I wouldn't say the entire Black community, because Black Twitter is not the Black community. But we saw the negative stuff that kind of hit back on Tiger Woods for him taking the sideline so publicly. And it's okay to be a sideline advocate or just to sit on the sidelines, but for those who want to be at the forefront and be the role model for others that follow, like that, it's tremendous when we have that kind of courage that in our athletes that's able to do just that.
I wanted to say too, I think that even with the example with Tiger Woods saying, "Hey, don't forget my mom, she's Asian, so I'm part." I think a lot of times when athletes or people say that, they're trying to find their balance, because it can be so people can add so much pressure to your life, your single little life, to carry the weight of the world. And they're saying, "Hey, I didn't take and choose the path of Martin Luther King." I mean, he took on a lot of stuff, a lot of responsibility, a lot of weight and concern. And it's I don't think everyone is saying I don't want to be a part of it. It's just, don't make me the focal point, because I'm not the only one out here to influence. You should really, as parents, we really should be or have more influence on our children. But because a lot of different things that happen, such as parents let TV raise their children instead of being more influential in their children's lives, so then we put it off on these people that's public figures and just, so you need to do this better and you need to do that better. I think that some people say it to get a way out, as a scapegoat, but then I think some people actually say it because they're saying, "Listen, I'm trying to find balance in all of this. This is a lot." And it is a lot, because we've been fighting for civil rights, for a long time. I mean,
Very true. Very true. So, and we're on WLJZ 107.1 FM, Livingstone College.
Yes, that's us.
That's us. And right now we're on with the great podcast, Names Are Not Important. The Mac and Free show, they called in, and we got Delficio McDonald and Benjamin Free. Delficio McDonald, by the way, is a UNCG Spartan.
Okay.
And he has an extensive and successful career in marketing, and he's also a great engineer too of programs, by the way. You don't have to respond. I gave you that prop, Dale, and that is the truth. And so we're glad to have him. Benjamin Free is a Benedict College graduate.
Okay, now.
BC.
A basketball player back in the day for Benedict.
Wow.
And he's a pastor.
Okay.
And he is also one half of the Mac and Free team. And his father was the commissioner of the MEAC and the first African American to be on the NCAA tournament committee.
Wow.
Which is on right now, March Madness.
Wow.
What we're watching, the Final Four. So he grew up in the game.
Grew up in it.
Yeah.
Benedict College. That's in South Carolina.
BC.
Yeah, my brother was
Okay.
a Benedict College graduate out there.
That's
Okay.
right. That's right. Great man. Great
Yeah.
man.
So Ben, you've worked extensively amongst other things with AAU sports. You've coached with young athletes for years. Dr. Boone talked earlier about modeling, and even Dale D commented on that. If I can't see it, I can't be it. A lot of people would suggest I have to see it to be it. Do you see, whether it's the youth in your church congregations or the athletes that you still work with, are they picking up on, we talking Jack Johnson foreshadowing to now, are they seeing what LeBron and Michael Jordan and Jalen Rose and what those folks are doing in philanthropy and business? Are they learning that lesson that when they make it, they would mirror that? Or is that being transferred, Ben?
Well, to speak, not completely sure. To be honest, I know in my experience, we tried to do that. We tried to show ourselves as being professionals to the young people we were coaching, and trying to show how we moved in our daily lives as family men, as professionals. So I know in our walk, we always tried to stress that, and other coaches and influencers that we dealt with, we try to try to show that and display that to the young folks. But I do think they're paying attention, because with social media and everything, we're so connected, even more so nowadays. I think they are, but the key is are those coaches and those developing, are they reiterating what LeBron and the Jalen Roses and everybody, what they're doing? Because when you look at that, it's phenomenal what LeBron is doing. And I think the more we reiterate that, it changes the standard. And then it moves the mindset from, okay, I'm an excellent athlete, I'm tops, I have these opportunities, but what am I doing to make impact?
Yeah, impact.
And I think LeBron is changing that standard to move the mindset toward impact. It's always good we can bring our friends along and help them do some other things. But I mean, when you look at LeBron's team and what they're doing, they are creating impact. And that's the mindset we have to move to.
Let's talk about, you both said about 5 or 6 things that we could do a whole segment on. And for those, and let me let the listeners know as well that Ben is a Duke University, he's in the divinity school student at this time. He's at Duke Divinity School at this time. So if you hear some high theology out of his athletic critique, then that's why he's down there chopping it up with the Dukies at that fine school. So on that thing, you talked about LeBron's team. So in the movie last night, the Great White Hope, which was a part of the Big Read week-long list of activities that Livingstone College, along with the National Endowment of the Arts, did a phenomenal job.
Yes.
To Miss Good News kicking off the celebration with that high energy. And I was dancing while y'all threw the music on. I will not do that now because we're on YouTube. And that would be a disgrace. But so in the movie last night, The Great White Hope, the team around Jack Johnson was certainly not black. He was surrounded with the moguls of boxing at that time, the Bob Arums and the those folks of that day.
Right.
So his team, he was not able to bring his team along with him. Although he did have some assistance from a prominent Negro League baseball team that came to his defense when you're a bad brother when the United States Congress passes a bill to get you. And that's what the Mann Act was. It was a bill that dealt with the transporting of, quote unquote, air quotes, y'all, women across state lines. But it was, if you read the devil's in the details, right? In the details of that legislation, you could be nabbed for interracial dating. It was written like that.
Right.
So that was a lot different in his day. But and Ben's father, big ups to Ken Free Sr. And my mother Loretta Free knows him real well. That's an inside joke. But he was a Negro Leagues player. He played with Satchel Paige. Right. So there's a lot of congruency with the Negro Leagues and Jack Johnson, both, figuratively and literally. You said LeBron's team. Jack Johnson couldn't really do that and get a team paid. LeBron James is getting his team paid. And there were people in the NBA that were not happy about that. They wanted you to go to the list of agents that are on the registry and pick one of them. Either one of you brothers, talk about, is that gonna keep happening? The team that LeBron assembled of his homies that are brilliant brothers, but may not have law degrees. Some may, some may not. Is that gonna be a trend? And will the pro sports arena allow that to proliferate? What you say?
I think it should. This is Mac, by the way. I think it should, because one thing you have to put it into perspective. At the height of Jack Johnson's career was 1908. We hadn't even reached segregation yet. So to see that a young black man is taking the reins and putting his team in place, with him being one of the first to do that,
right,
it lets you know how much further we have to go.
True.
Because it lets you know that the system kind of holds people back in taking the directions that are given to them instead of forging your own path.
Wow.
And when we see LeBron James take a team, childhood friends, and say, you know what? We're going to build together. We're not going to forge forward with what they tell us to do.
Wow.
We're going to figure out exactly how we're going to do it ourselves.
Wow.
And to see that happen and go in the direction that they've gone, and to see them make it, because he didn't give them anything but opportunity.
Talk.
So
come on.
When you look at what his team has done, it is to be admired because they took opportunity and made the best of it. And those brothers worked. They didn't sit on the sideline and accept what was given to them. They worked to get where they are. So when you look at Maverick Carter and what's the other guy's name, Ben?
Is Rich Paul in that team?
Yeah, Maverick and Rich Paul, when you look at what they've done, you have to be able to admire that. But they did it off the strength of somebody having an opportunity for themselves, lending them an opportunity, and then making the best of their opportunity. And as a result of that hard work, that team is now part owners of the Red Sox. They've opened schools going back, and I don't want to repeat everything that Free said, but when you look at everything that they've been able to do as a team,
that team is part owner of the Red Sox, D.
Right.
Is that what you said? That team?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Team.
I didn't think about
LeBron
that.
James, that team.
Yeah.
But that's interesting. Mac pointed that out about the team, and that was brilliant. It wasn't just LeBron saying, "Come on, I got you," and do this.
The hook up.
Those gentlemen went out and worked.
That's right.
To become the best at what they do, and that's key because they saw the opportunity. To your point, Brother McKee, will it stop? We don't know. We know how people used to refer to LeBron's team as his entourage and kind of put these negative overtones
Hangers
on.
on.
Yeah. So we see that because I think when the game starts to leverage out, there's always nervousness when potential power starts to shift. You know what I'm saying? If you look at the height of Jack Johnson, let's look at when Jack Johnson was coming to prominence, late 1800s, early 1900s.
Right.
Blacks at that time, you saw the rise of the Black Wall Streets. Blacks were in an entrepreneurial mindset. We were building, coming off of Jim Crow, we were building communities and thriving. And then we saw what happened behind that. So there's always this air about where economic power lies. And then once again, when you see the quote unquote minority begin to realize its power, there's always a point of contention with the larger masses. And I think so there'll always be that point of contention, I think, when you see certain groups. They're young, they're African American.
They are.
Like you said, the first mantra was shut up and play. There's always that stigma, the dumb athlete.
Yes.
But yet we see how entertainers and everybody are always used for their influence on stuff. But
true,
when the athlete begins to speak, but that's understanding the power that he possesses. But I think there'll always be that contention there. When we do the full power analysis.
There's two things I want to double down on that Ben just said so eloquently. I want to double down on. One, he talked about the
y'all are being real nice to each other today too. If y'all tune into their show,
normally are.
This is not how it goes down. But go ahead, D.
But there's two things. So one of them is how, and he alluded to this, talking about how people tried to take him down a peg. We're calling them hangers on and trying to give negative connotations to their names instead. But what they've done is showed exactly how dangerous they are to the existing structures. Because what LeBron James has done is two things. One is show black people that you don't necessarily have to go to college to be intelligent and make a life forging ahead for yourself. So one of the things the NCAA tried to do was make, I think that was Maverick, go through they said that in order for him to be an agent, he would, Rich Paul, he would have to be an agent.
Yep.
He would have to be college educated in order to be an agent, and they call that the Rich Paul rule. Well,
That's true.
that one was obvious, and it stuck to the high heavens of, this kind of pushing him out because of what they were doing, because what they're showing is other black people coming along behind them that they can do the same thing.
Yeah.
So I think it will continue, because I think more so than anything, it's seen as positive amongst their community, and more people will try to do it. And we're starting to see a heightened level of black entrepreneurship now. Again, so everybody's, and they're finding different ways to become entrepreneurs. So if you look at your timelines on like Instagram, places like that, there are plenty of black entrepreneurs. Yeah. Plenty, like selling clothing or selling products or what have you. They're there and they're growing because of this influence, whether it be directly or indirectly. But they see the influence of other black entrepreneurs, which is the reason why, and I hate this show, Love and Hip Hop, but it is one positive thing about it. It does kind of heighten the idea of black entrepreneurship. That's right. On different levels. And it feeds that positivity into the community. And I'm all for anything that does that.
Hey, so tell the people out there how they can tune in to your show. How can they reach you guys or hear you guys?
Let's see if Free can do it. Now you're gonna see us argue a little bit. He can't do it.
Once again, if you stay ready, you ain't got to
get ready.
But you can go to the YouTube channel. Mac is free. Names are not important to check out the show. We're also on Spreaker. Names are not important. You can also check us out on Instagram and Facebook. Names are not important. And we're on everything else you can think of. Mac, I know you still probably going to get on me, but hey.
I'm not. Actually, that was a good. I wish y'all had a applause button. You hit it right now. That was awesome.
That's all right.
Well,
That's all right.
Y'all a trip. So everybody check their show out. They'll be making their NCAA Final Four predictions and arguing about that. And well, you got your applause, Ben. Ben, you got your applause. Did you hear it? You brought your,
and let me say applause to Livingstone College for all
I know
you're
that's
doing.
right.
I've been listening, and I've enjoyed the music. Like y'all are like bringing me back into what's going on today, because I was a little disconnected. But I just want to say kudos and shout outs to everything y'all are doing with this movement. Keep up the good work, and I just thank you for the opportunity to come and share this moment with you.
And
absolutely. And Livingstone, as we got some ties to Livingstone, so because some good friends of ours were recently entered into the Athletic Hall of Fame. That's Mike Posey and Shannon Gainey. So
awesome
with the championship.
Big shout out to them.
Football.
Big shout out to LC football.
Yes,
and LC Athletics and Gym. Man, thank you guys, man. Ben, you can go ahead and get hydrated for the Raekwon versus Ghostface Killer versus tonight.
I'm ready for
and
that.
I know you got Ghostface, so I'm gonna take Ray. So yeah, but check those guys out. They had a great show. Ben, you scared me during one of your comments because I thought you were about to say where the money resides. But you did it. You came close. Big shout out to Shreveport and Baton Rouge and New Orleans for all the good people down there where that brother was from.
I follow him too, and he has become his own entrepreneur now.
Do your thing.
He took that name and he had it trademarked, and it's all his. Big shout outs to that brother.
Shout out
Rails down in Baton Rouge.
Shout out to Baton Rouge. Shout out to Louisiana. Thank you guys, man. Have a great day, and I'll be talking to you soon.
Thank y'all.
No doubt. That was Benjamin Free, and that was Dale Fiscio McDonald of Mac and Free. Names are not important. Podcast. Tune in to those brothers. They do a great job over there, and they just provided us with some great commentary. We're going to try to pull Malcolm Teasdale in before the end of the show. If we can't, I'm going to go into fierce negotiations with the station to try to have him on again if they won't change the code and not let me in here again. Now,
we'll let him back.
y'all let me back. This good dude. Thank you. So yes, but those brothers did a great job, and thank you for that commentary, because one of the goals for programs like the Big Read, and again, big shout out to the National Endowment of the Arts and Livingstone College for putting on the Big Read. It's encouraging literacy, which we desperately need to increase in our nation and in our world.
Yes.
It's encouraging an appreciation and a love for literature.
Right.
And I think Ms. Good News talked about it either today or in a celebration. I'm not sure when it was, but books and things like this allow you to get beyond your immediate reality, don't they?
Yes, it does. It really does. And shout out to Rowan County Public Library.
Yes.
Shout out to Rowan County Public Library. And again, we here at WLJZ 107.1 FM, we have Word Up Wednesdays. And Wednesdays we provide a word, or we allow you to sponsor a word. So you're going to have to sponsor a word, okay? Make sure you leave the word here, and we're going to let them know it was by you, okay? So what we do is just provide a word every Wednesday to help add value to ourselves and just, encourage each other to do the same thing, because if you continue to read, you can experience so many things, because there's so many people who's never traveled outside of North Carolina.
That's right.
You can travel if you read. So
that's right.
That's one way to travel.
Yeah. I think it was one of the founding fathers said something to their son that was going overseas, something to the effect like, I think it might have been John Adams. Rescue me if I'm wrong, Facebook or LC listening community. He said, with a poet in your pocket, you're never alone. And there have been so many people like Dr. Maya Angelou,
right,
that had immediate surroundings that were tragic. At one point, she was sleeping in abandoned cars in a junkyard. But through literature,
yep,
she allowed her poetry to supersede her pain. I'm gonna say that one more time. She allowed her poetry to supersede her pain. And she was mute for several years, but through the power of literature and expressing herself and allowing her creative voice to go free, as she wrote, teaming up with Paul Laurence Dunbar, that great avant-garde genius, I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings.
yes.
And that cage bird sings because the notes of that song go beyond those bars.
That's right.
And the encampment. So I think we got Malcolm Teasdale queued up and on the line. Again, if you just tuned in, WLJZ 107.1 FM, Malcolm co-wrote Howard White's signature book, Believe to Achieve, and he wrote the curriculum for that book. And he is a noted author and educator. Brother Malcolm, are you with me? Who you with?
Nope. No doubt about it. I'm right here, brother. How you doing?
Oh, I hear the South Bronx accent coming through. Hey, brother, we gotta do something together, like down south meets up north. Cause they tell me I sound like I'm from the southern part of Texas, and you sound like you from Maine.
Right.
What'd you say?
That's about right.
Oh, we doing that today? Okay, all right.
No, we not. No, we not. No, I wouldn't dare. I wouldn't dare.
I know that. Go on ahead. We wide open in here. So, as I said, Malcolm has been a noted educator, recognized by Nike brand, and we're coming towards the closing of the show, and nobody more fitting than yourself to close the show because you got your hand in the pulse of what the young people are doing now, and you've also got a hand in that NBA type of sphere and world, and you co-wrote a dynamic book, Believe to Achieve, with Howard White. So I would just ask you this: how confident are you that this Miss Good News talked about how hard it is to be a pioneer, to start something? And there are those like Jack Johnson and like Michael Jordan who have started this thing, LeBron James. Are you confident that today's athlete, from what you're seeing as an educator and as a community leader, do you think this is the beginning of a trend, or do we have work to do? Talk to us about that.
I would say we certainly have work to do. It can happen, but with these guys, the guys you mentioned with Jack Johnson and MJ and those and LeBron and Kobe and those guys, you can't set out to say I'm going to make history. You just have to do it. And those guys becoming pioneers. They just went and did it. There was no we're going to do this and then we're going to do that. They didn't talk about it. They just went out and did it. And it happened. And then it became history after that. So yes, it can happen, but we're going to need some help.
But we're going to need some help. So you work closely with Howard White, and more people need to know his name. As I said earlier,
right.
Howard White conceived Brand Jordan. Let me repeat that.
Yes.
Howard White conceived. Big shout out to Phil Knight, one of the founders of Nike, correct? But big shout out to him for teaming up with Howard and vice versa. But would there have been a Brand Jordan, Malcolm, if there were no Jack Johnson and Buck O'Neal and Satchel Paige of the Negro Leagues? What do you think?
No, there wouldn't be, because those guys, they paved the way at a time when again, they just did it. It just happened. But no, it wouldn't be. It wouldn't be. You stand on the shoulders of who came before you, who happen to be giants. Especially guys like Jack Johnson, especially when Jack Johnson was unapologetic about who he was and what he was trying to do, and he was not going to hold his tongue. And when it was time to call out certain champions, he called them out and made sure they fought him.
He did.
That's awesome. That's what we was talking about a little bit before. just having that confidence, the level to be able to do these things, because like you said, it's not mapped out for you when you're the pioneer of the thing, and it's not history until after it's done. You know, everything seems hard until you get it done. And then for people like Jack Johnson and Michael Jordan, you have to have a certain type of level of confidence to do these things. There's no way you can have a mediocre mindset. I think TD Jake said once, you can't have a turtle mindset and view when you're a giraffe. And these pioneers are giraffes, so they're towering over, you know. And so their insight and everything is just totally different, and people do not understand it all the time, and it doesn't always even make sense. But you have to figure out are you gonna barbecue a mildew? You know, what you gonna do?
What you gonna do? Yeah, and Nike.
I could say I totally agree. I totally agree. And to Will's point with the Jordan brand concept, it was David Falk and Phil Knight and Howard White and Larry Miller and Fred Whitfield. If it wasn't for a group coming together saying this can be done, because everyone thought they were crazy to trying to do this.
Wow.
But when they were able to get it done, what happens next? It becomes history, and they become pioneers. So, you know, things like that, it takes time, and you need the right people around you. So we do need some help. These young brothers here, they're going to need some help. It can be done, but they will need help.
You talked about young brothers. And, you know, you grew up in the Bronx, and we all used to remember broken glass everywhere, you know, which kind of gave us a pictorial image for those of us that were not New Yorkers of what the urban situation was like at the advent of hip-hop. So, you know, Miss Good News talked about the confidence, the moxie, the confidence to do it. I meet a lot of students, Malcolm, and I know you work with a lot, that are terrified sometimes at the idea of leading, particularly in spaces where, big shout out to Vice President Kamala Harris, particularly in spaces where they're non-black folks that will be following them. And I know you've worked with the Nike folks and in the schools. What do you tell young people, if there are some young people listening right now? This is a worldwide show, so we know that they are. As we come to a close, what do you say to them if they're a little nervous or squeamish about jumping into the lead and being a leader in lieu of a Jack Johnson, a Michael Jordan, a Howard White? What do you say to them?
It's real simple. Say something and say whatever you need to say, because what's the worst that can happen?
Wow. Come on then.
What's the worst that can happen?
Right.
What's the worst that can happen? Someone disagree? Okay. Well, then you move on and you keep going.
That's right.
Never quitting.
That's it.
Never quitting.
That's it. Keep going.
That's simple.
Keep going.
That's simple right there. What he just said. Just say something. Do something.
I think that's kind of the South Bronx in him, because they get to the point quick,
right.
and you know what it is.
He said, that's it. Just say something and just do something. Because, you know, I always say one thing for sure and two things for certain. If you don't say anything and you don't do anything, you won't make it. So you can believe that. That's so it's that simple. Say something. Just say something and do something.
Man, that is an awesome quick word, right? That's a right now word. The preachers would say that's a rhema word. So Malcolm, I want to go ahead.
Will, I'm sorry, Will, quick question. Did my cousin call in before I did?
He did, and he put a lot of pressure on you about what you were gonna bring forth. Charles Whitfield, that's right, the movie mogul.
He already bumped me around in my time this morning, so that's okay.
That's another lesson for young people, Malcolm. Yield to your elders. Respect.
No, I know that's right.
Respect your elders. If they need to adjust something, be graceful in that. And play your role.
And move around. Absolutely.
And you came through in fine fashion as well. He mentioned you too. Oh, he mentioned you. So he did. So, man, thank you for coming on. I salute the great work that you've done in education and with the awesome book, Believe to Achieve, which we all need to continue to believe that we can achieve. Big salute to you, brother. Big shout out to the South Bronx, the Boogie Down Fat Joe, and all the representatives up there. I'm going to let you get to your business so that you can be in place tonight for verses, because I know you got an interest. For y'all that don't know, Malcolm is best friends with DJ Technician. I don't know if he's DJing for Ghostface tonight, but he DJ'd for Jada Kiss in the verses with Jada Kiss versus Fabulous. That's Malcolm's best friend, and they all rock with DJ Kid Capri. So Malcolm's got to probably get beverages, non-alcoholic, chips, dip, and all that, and be in place for verses tonight.
Way to clean that up, Will. Way to clean that one up.
I clean nothing but grape juice and soda. So please give my bet. If DJ Tech is DJing for Ghost tonight, tell him good luck from us here. And I'm going to be watching too. So
yeah, I'm going to be watching. And then you make sure we stay in touch, because we have to get you on the show here at WLJZ 107.1 FM.
Come on now.
Miss Good News.
Thank you, sister.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brother Malcolm.
Thank you.
Man, have a good one, brother.
All right, peace.
Wow, what a 2 hours.
Wow.
What a 2 and
that's a lot.
You know, your name is accurate because you brought the good news.
Oh.
And we needed that this morning. And I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of yours. Already was. So
well, likewise.
Any parting comments as we?
Man, no, just check out the YouTube. Now, I'm not sure, is it going to be on Livingstone's YouTube or WLJZ or maybe both? So y'all just make sure y'all tune in so y'all can get all this information. This was a good discussion and full of a lot of quality people, starting with you. So,
thank you.
I'm honored.
Make sure you are at my Hall of Fame induction.
Yes, had me wait, and I'm like, what is he about to say?
Yeah, we're not having a ceremony. Remember that. So I agree with you, Miss Good News. Big thanks to Dr. Will Boone of Winston-Salem State. Big thanks to Charles Whitfield, music exec. Big thanks to Malcolm Teasdale, author and educator. Big thanks to Mac and Free of the Names Are Not Important podcast.
Yes.
It's been a blast. Thank you to 107.1 FM, as Miss Good News said. We've been discussing Jack Johnson. Go out, read more about him.
Yes.
Big shout out to the Big Read. Until next time, love, peace, and blessings. We out.